Hi everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with the December 2017 Simon Says stamp kit. I'm still dealing with all of the cuteness that comes from this kit, but again, these are going to be from cards 6 to 10, so we've got a lot of different things going on here. For card number 6, it was kind of evident to me. This just like kind of came into my head, so we're going to use the pattern paper with all the Santa faces. We're going to use our wonky stitch die. This makes a huge comeback here. And I'm also going to set a circle die in the center of that. Use some Post-it tape to keep it all in place, and I'm going to put that through my die cutting machine. So now I have that opening there. I also used one of my circle stitched dies to create a glitter panel in the back of this. So I'm going to adhere that circle behind. So it is larger so that you can't see the white edge. I want that to be covered when you're looking through this panel, the pattern paper panel. So I'm going to eventually grab a pencil because I don't know why I didn't do that before, but we just go with it. And I'm going to set that down to make sure that the pencil lines are covered. So we have all of this wonderful glitter that's coming through that section. So I'm going to use my foam tape for this because I do want this panel propped up. So using fun foam, you can do it, but it can get a little bit tedious and time consuming. So it's just easier to use the foam tape there. So I stamped the Santa image, of course, but I only covered the head. So we're going to unfortunately chop off his little body there. And I'm going to then use my black soot distress marker to go around those edges so that it looks a little cleaner. Because again, we hate fussy cutting even when we're following a line. And what we're going to do with that, so it's just going to be a Santa face overload. This is awesome. So I'm going to use one of my wobblers that I'm throwing around the table there. These wobblers are great. Now I only get the one size. I get the mini ones. They're more versatile. They really don't need the large ones. So this fit perfectly. I realized I put it on upside down. Put the wrong side attached to the Santa Claus. And we're going to fight with getting the protective paper off of this. So you want the circle that to go down onto the card, where the plastic piece that I was struggling with, that goes up on your piece that you want to wobble. Now I am going to use some of my art glitter glue as well, because again, I am putting this down onto the glitter paper, and we're going to use a couple acrylic blocks just to push it down in there so that it's well secured, and it worked really well. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I'm using one of the sentiments from the paper pattern pack, and we're just going to fishtail the ends of it. And then, of course, we curl up our edges. And we're going to set that right down below, covering the bottom edge of that circle. And then we'll make sure that that is adhered into place. We're going to play with the wobble, which I can do forever. So yeah, I even slowed it down since I speed up my videos, so it wasn't like really hurting your eyeballs there. So now we're just going to do some accents. I'm going to use my White Blizzard Nouveau glitter drops, and I'm going to use them like I do my stickles. So I'm not looking for dimension, but I just want this glitter sense, because when this dries, it does dry clear. So you just see the glitter. So I'm just going to do his little tiny top of the hat and the brim of the hat. And then I pulled out, again, this lacquer pen that I received in one of my Hero Arts kits. The tip you always have to unclog a lot, but I'm covering in the hat. What I used to color the hat in this image are my Prismacolor alcohol markers, and I'll list the colors that I use below. I am a Prismacolor fan when it comes to alcohol markers. I do check out some alternatives when it comes to them. I'm going to use a black glaze gel pen so that I can use that on his eyes, just so his eyes stand out just a little bit more. And that's our little wobbly wiggly Santa face with many Santa faces. So I thought it was cute. Something simple though. For the next card, this kind of takes some time. I stared at that pattern paper for the Advent forever. I knew I wanted to do something with this. I just didn't know what. So I cut every square out and removed the borders around it. The paper that I just cut there, that I'm about to put the sentiment on, that says, I combined two, Christmas is Claus for celebration, from our squad to yours, Merry Christmas. So I just layered them. This is a very lightweight cardstock. This is almost cardstock that you would run through your printer. So it's easier to fold, it won't add too much bulk, and so forth. So I stamped that on there, and then I fishtailed the one end, and we're going to set aside. You're going to see what I'm going to do with that. This card base, I used my Nina Solar White 80 pound. This card base is cut 5 inches by 10 inches, and it's scored at 5 inches. So this is going to be a perfectly square 5 inch by 5 inch card. So it's a little bit bigger than normal. For the number 25 square, I actually propped that up using the very lightweight cardstock so that it'll fold up. All of the other squares, now of course you know I have to have dimensions, so what I'm doing, every other square I'm going to adhere straight down onto the card base, and that's what that looks like there. For the ones that are left, and I used the grid on my craft mat, or if you use those paper pads, you could use that as well with the grid, just so I could line them up. Now I'm going to fill in, and those 2 squares that are sitting to the left and above the 25, I'm just trimming a little bit because I want that 25 to flip up. So if I kept them the same size, they would have gotten in the way or held it down and whatever. So the rest of these squares, we're going to use the foam squares just to prop that up. So now we've got like a stepping stone effect going across this top folding card. So just a little bit of a dimension, and then we've got 25 flipped up. So now I'm going to take this, it's kind of creating an interactive card, but not using any dies or anything else. I just cut the strip to 3/4 of an inch wide, however long you would need it. And now I'm going to fold this, and it's going to be like an accordion. I'm going to fold it back upon itself. I don't want to fold over. I want it to go back and forth. So we're just going to keep folding that. And you want to make sure that you use your bone folder on this, because you really want this to be creased, just so that 25 just doesn't constantly stick up, so to speak. Then I'm going to grab one of my Micron pens, and just on one of those little fishtails, this is the 0.01 size, I'm going to write the word pull. So we're going to put a little bit of glue just in that one square. We don't want all of them because it would not be able to open. And then I'm going to fold that up. So when the recipient gets it, they'll know, and I'm really pushing that down now, they'll know to pull that tab, and out comes our sentiment from the bottom of the card. I thought it was different. This is like one of my favorites. This is like one of the top 2. So now you can just have fun. We can use any type of accents or embellishments we want. We could use sequins. I used my Christmas red stickles for the berries and the cherries. I'm using my Spectrum Noir to glitter up each of the blocks in some way. You could use your sequins. You could use little tiny paints. I mean, there's so much you could have done to accent these more in any way. But I just thought it was really different, and I was very determined to use that panel in some way. For card number 8, we're going to do a gingerbread focus. I tested it down on the bottom corner there, but we're going to use the brown paper from the paper pad, and I'm going to stamp using my Early Espresso dye ink from Stampin' Up, and I'm just going to stamp all over. We all know I love to create my own pattern papers in some way. The wonky die is coming in, so I'm just positioning that to see how much more I need to fill in, what areas are missing stamping, and so forth. So again, just playing around, making sure. I ran that through my die cutting machine, and now I'm using the smaller heart from the stamps, and then just putting those around. And now I'm using one of my Avriel scalloped border dies, and I just want to check. I used it on one side, and now I just want to check the height of what I need, which is 1.5 inches. I want that to be the width of this strip. So it's almost like a piece of lace, almost. And I'm going to prop that up using my 3M foam tape. And we're going to kind of position that just a little bit up from the center. Going to again we want to use the grid map below us, because then that can help us guide. So I always like to have the paper run off the sides. I'm okay trimming, but that by doing that, it kind of helps you line up on those lines. And now we're just going to have fun with these adorable stickers. So just using the 2 canes to create a heart, using 2 of the gingerbread on either side of that, kind of making sure that it's centered, but again, if it's not, it's okay. Using one of these smaller hearts in between the 2 candy canes. And now I'm just going to have fun with the stickers, using the gumdrops, the candies, and the hearts, and just putting them throughout the background as well, just to help give it some color, to break up the 2-tone browns, or really 3 tones there. If you look at the pattern paper, it's got 2 already. Just to give that a pop of color, to help pull those designs out and make them the focal point. I'm going to trim the edges. And then I'm just checking. I think when I put that down, the card actually shifted just a little bit, but I just wanted to make sure, because it just didn't look straight to me, and I do believe it is a little crooked, but that's okay. Nothing is ever trash worthy. We keep going. They're handmade cards. We're better than Hallmark, but they're still handmade cards. So I'm going to use one of the sentiments from the paper pad, Have a Sweet Christmas, fishtailed both ends, and just going to secure that just underneath part of the scallop so that it's peeking under. I'm going to use my Tombow Mono tape runner to secure that in place, and I'm going to pull out my stickles again, the Christmas red, and I'm going to fill in the buttons on each of the ginger men or ginger women. They can go either way. There's nothing here designating boys. I thought it was really cute, very simple. For this one here, I took care of the coloring. I kind of did the same thing. No bodies, just heads. I used my Prismacolor alcohol markers to color them, and I wanted to use one of each of the images. So of course we've got the little kitty, little poppers, and then Mr. and Mrs. Claus. So I used a die that came from a Hero Arts kit. I believe it was their February kit of 2017, because it creates a perfect window. Chose the polka dot, or the dotted speckled pattern paper for that, so I've cut that out, and then I'm using the red and white stripe, of course, to create the roof, the awning that comes over the window. So just trimming that up, making sure that it just overhangs a little bit on each side, but of course staying within my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card bases that I always use. And then I'm using my corner chomper. That's the type of corner rounder I like. I'll link to them. I got them from Amazon. I'm then taking a light blue piece of cardstock from my stash, and I'm using the Faded Jeans Oxide inks and the Nuvo brush blenders. These are awesome. They do an awesome job. And I use one for both inks and the oxides. So I don't have a set just for my oxides and just for my dye inks. And you can see I did that because I just wanted the center panels for the window to be done, because I wanted that to be blue. So I'm actually going to use, I was going to use my Stampin' Up! Strip adhesives, but I thought they were just a little bit wobbly. I thought with the 3M foam tape, I would use that. It would be just a little bit more stable because I could cut it bigger, just a little wider. And then I'm just going to put a very small piece just in the center where the two beams cross for the window. So we're actually going to get the window set in place. And it's going to be a little bit down because we want the awning to come up. And we're going to put pieces of foam tape on the back of that as well, because I want that propped up and even. But yep, now you know I'm going to curl those edges to make them flip up just a little bit to add even more dimension. I first wanted to put my blue panels in because it is going to overhang. So I want the darkest shade of blue that I blended to go towards the center. So that's why at one point you saw me take the die and put it over after I did some blending, because I wasn't worried about that center point. I figured it would get covered up when we die cut it. So we're going to set the awning in place, fringe it up a little bit, and now we're going to set our Santa family in the windows. At first I was really going to have them hang over, but I thought, you know, that would just look a little too dramatic. So we're going to use a couple foam squares for Santa and just have it overhang just a little bit onto the base of the window. But at least this way it'll look like that they're all looking out each of the windows. And then I'm going to use some of the scraps from the pattern paper that I've been using. I really went through a lot of the pattern paper, which was awesome. So I'm going to use this strip here. This is the red on red dot. And I'm going to use the sentiment from our squad to yours, Merry Christmas. And I'm going to use my Recollections white, which is called Snow, embossing powder. Now, no, for the previous card, I'm sorry, I forgot to say, I used my Versamark ink. You don't want to emboss that sentiment, because again, you're folding all that up. Just a little side note, sorry, all over the place here. So I'm going to, since I used alcohol inks, I figured, you know, I could use my Spectrum Noir just to give it some glitter. It wasn't enough glitter for me, believe it or not. So I looked at that, I thought it was cute. I pulled in my red stickles. And now I'm just going to cover the hats and then also do Mrs. Claus's earrings just to give it a very large amount of sparkle and shine for this card, just to give it a lot more accent. And that is card number 9. I thought it came out cute. For the last one, we're going to take some of the scraps, some of the strip pieces, and we're going to create our card base. So this is the Nina Desert Storm craft that came with the card kit. I cut a panel from All the Candies. I thought that was really pretty paper. I really wanted to use that as well. And again, this could be any width. This is about 2 inches, 2 1/4 inches. I cut one of these strips. They have decorated strips within the pattern paper. I'm using the holly, and I'm just going to butt that right up next to that pattern paper there so that there's no gap. Sorry about that. And then I'm going to use just the plain red, and I'm going to straddle that between the two pieces of cardstock that I have there, but not covering up the holly berries. So I want that shown. And that's pretty much the card base for right now. The piece of paper that I'm working on here is the Bristol Smooth. Now I'm actually trying a new Bristol paper. This is actually within AC Moore. It is their brand, the Nicole brand, Love Nicole. I used it before. I've been playing around with this. I really like it. I usually, you know, I'm an XL, Canson XL person. I love that too, but this is very easy to work with. I did use my Versamark Black, and I used my clear to heat emboss it, so that'll give me the wells. I do have the Zig pens, so I'm using the two different shades of green, and again, I will list them down below, the exact shades that I used. And I'm going in with the dark first, and then I'm pulling it down a little bit with the mid green, just to add some color there, because I'm eventually going to come in with my water brush, and I'm going to drag that down. So I want it darker at the top, and I want it lighter towards the bottom. So I'm just going to pull that down. Nothing fancy. Again, with all of the water that I'm putting into this well, I'm really just letting the ink and the pigment do what it wants to do. I find I can let this go and let it do what it wants to do and get great results. When you try to manipulate it, that's sometimes where things go awry. So we did the green, we did the brown. I wanted to heat set that, so I used my heat gun. This is the color Wine, and I just wanted to give the tree a base. So I actually just drew a oval underneath it so that it looks like it has a tree skirt. And when I come in with my watercolor, I'm actually like almost squiggling off the edges so that it looks like it's fringy. I don't know if that's a word, but let's use it as the word of our day. Fringy. Now I'm coming in with the very pale blue, and I'm just going to go along the edge, and then I'm going to pull it out with my water brush. So just so that it can pull that tree out just a little bit. And I'm going to do that all around the tree. I'm going to heat set this again, because that's really all the coloring that I'm going to do. I'm using one of my Lawn Fawn scalloped dies, and I was going to prop it up with using foam tape. I had a scrap piece of fun foam near me, so I figured let's use that. Again, I'm using one of the sentiments from the paper pack, and it just simply says Season's Greetings, so I'm going to trim it down to make it even. We all know how well I do with that. And then I'm going to adhere it just down onto the base. Once that's set, we're then going to set that Bristol paper down. So I will try to link to the Bristol paper. I really like it. I'm almost going to say that I like it even more the Canson XL Bristol Vellum. Very easy to work with, very smooth, and I think it's got a nice shade of white. I don't necessarily go for bright white, but I do want it to have like a nice shade of white. I use those sequins. I'm getting used to them. I guess where I struggle is with regular sequins, you know what side is up. I don't know. I tend to like the old-fashioned. I used my stickles for the star, and we set that in place. So this is the recap of the last 5 cards from the December 2017 Simon Says card kit. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like it, hit the thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We have a lot of fun here, as always. We laugh at each other, or if you just want to laugh at me, I'm good with that. There will be so much more coming up. I hope everyone is enjoying their the happy everything that you may be celebrating during this time, enjoying time with family and friends. Hopefully we're not going crazy and pulling out all kind of wine bottles or whatever we drink, although if we do, have a good time with it. All the products that I used will be listed down below with links as best as I can. If you have any questions or comments, please list them down below. I will make sure I get back to you. And again, just so you know, if you're using a Google Plus account and commenting, I am not able to respond to those comments. Okay, I'm not ignoring you. I just don't have the capability of answering you, which makes me feel really bad. So I real quick just wanted to mention that again. Always remember, everyone, be creative.